Hey, now. Oh, there we go. We're live.
Sweet.
So, Bros Nation, welcome back for another episode of the Vix Flix podcast, a very special live broadcast of the Vix Flix podcast right here on So Bros Network this week. We're going to be talking about the 2021 Chattanooga Film Festival on this week's show. I'll be your host, the EIC at SoBrosNetwork.com, Big Natural, Stoney Keeley. You can follow me on Twitter at Stoney Keeley. Follow us collectively at VixFlixPod on Twitter and at Sobros Network on all major social media platforms. Mine's right, asses tight, as we tackle today's episode with, of course, the star of the show, the man himself, the man whose namesake the show bears, the resident film critic of Sobros Network, Mr. Big Shot himself, Brandon Vick. Brandon, how you doing today, man?
Doing good, doing good.
So
I wish I knew we were going live. I wouldn't be in my jammies.
Well, they can only see you from like half the chest up, so you're good.
I'm so confident in these new Old Navy pajamas, I wouldn't even care.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, nobody can see. Oh, there it is.
Oh, hey now.
Show us what you got there. What's them shorts trying to keep down? If you know
I hope
what I'm
no one
saying.
caught a glimpse of my chicken legs.
I don't think so. But those are some very stylish pajama bottoms you have there.
Thank you.
What have you been up to this week? We know the Chattanooga Film Festival was a couple of weeks ago. It took us a little bit of time to get all of our features organized. There's a couple of pieces up on SoBrosNetwork.com written by Brittany Fernandez, who couldn't join us here tonight. And you guys, you and Steven both have been super busy covering the film festival. Getting it all organized was a bit of a process, but here we are tonight. What have you been doing in the meantime, though, before we dive into the Chattanooga Film Festival?
Well, I think, along with everyone else, I've been watching that Fear Street trilogy that's going on Netflix right now.
Yeah.
I actually have the last installment, 1666, comes out Friday. I watched that last night.
Wait. How did you watch it last night if it comes out Friday? Are you a time traveler?
It pays to be a film critic.
Fair enough.
And then I was actually before we went live, I was telling Makash I watched a new Nicolas Cage movie that is not I think in these days, not your typical Nicolas Cage movie. It's called Pig, and it comes out Friday. And for anyone that lives here in town in Nashville, it's going to be at the Bell Court. Mm-hmm. And but one of the most surprising and best movies I've seen this year. Vix Flix gave it a 4.5 out of 5. I was so surprised. I was just so surprised by it. And Nicolas Cage is I put in there, anybody who thinks that his best acting days are done, this will prove you wrong.
Well, before we dive into today's subject matter, remind our listeners, or our viewers in this case, of the live show, how they can get in touch with you on social media.
Well, I have Venmo.
Okay.
So we can start with that.
Throw your Venmo handle out there.
No, on Twitter.
Stay grinding.
On Twitter, at Sir Brandon V. And of course, what you're listening to at Vix Flix Pod.
All right. And today we've got a very special guest on the Vix Flix podcast. He is typically our lead music writer for Sobros Network, Stephen McCash. Stephen, you got to cover the Chattanooga Film Festival. Your first time with the festival. Actually, I believe, was it your first film festival covered for Sobros Network too?
Absolutely, it was. I've been to the Nashville Film Festival for like a movie or two, but nothing at this scale.
This was
powered
something.
Through a lot in like 3 or 4 days.
I was blown away because we've got we use Slack as our sort of team messaging system, and we had a private DM going. A private DM, of course. It's redundant. But we had a group DM going between the three of us and Brittany, kind of coordinating coverage when we found out that Chattanooga was going to present us with the press passes and give us that access. That thing was just going off all weekend during the film festival, and I was blown away by how much the three of you guys were able to get on the same page about tackling the festival. But as the listeners will hear throughout the course of the show, you guys didn't really double up on many movies. So
No.
pretty impressive job altogether. Other than the festival, Steven, have you gotten into anything besides falling asleep during Black Widow?
Yeah, I fell asleep during Black Widow. To my defense, I work in an 85-degree warehouse. So when you go to the drive-in after a long day at work, it's easy to get comfortable in your Volkswagen Jetta and just fall asleep. I woke up the last time I woke up, Elaine from Seinfeld was on the screen. Spoiler,
God. What?
It made like $215 million opening weekend between Disney Plus and the Black box office. So
what what was with it? For at the drive.
Corella.
Those are two good ones.
That's
two very good ones. So at least one good one I can speak of. I only saw half of the other one.
Yeah, you can't comment on Black Widow. You have to go again.
And it really sucks because I love Florence Pugh and Scarlett Johansson as my baby mama from a previous life. But other than that, man, I've just been like slowly working back into the concert grind. You know, things are opening back up now. Went to Exit In last week for the phenomenal show. Just secured tickets to the Black Crowes show next weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that one.
You're a big drive-in guy. I think you're at the drive-in like every weekend. What are your favorite spots around town? I know there's not too many that I know of. Is there any particular place that you would point our listeners to go experience the drive-in?
Stardust out in Watertown is the one I go to the most. I think of the three local ones, it's the best one as far as concessions and you know, infrastructure and such. That's in Watertown. There's Pink Cadillac, which is where we went for Black Widow out in, is it Centerville or something? It's about an hour outside of town. And then there's one in Franklin, Kentucky that I haven't been to in probably a number of years. So those are the three, but Stardust is by far and away the best one.
I knew of Stardust. Go ahead, Brandon. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to ask because I know Stardust. So, Makash, do you go to the concession or do you pay the $7 and you bring in your food and stuff?
Oh no, I'm going to concession.
You go to the concession? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to cheat these people out of money. That's not.
No. You pay them. Pay them, so you can bring in stuff.
I know, but I would rather them get more money by me buying their overpriced popcorn and candy and soda.
Gotcha.
You're
you would love Regal.
Oh Lord, man, we don't even have to go there. But
I just want to. I will say I remember, especially when the pandemic, because it's dead and gone now. That when it was here.
When was that? That was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, is that I think that was kind of like the one thing. Like I think you went every weekend. Yeah. Every weekend.
In the very beginning, I was like, I cannot stay at home every night, week after week. And I just was on Facebook one day, saw that Stardust was still running. I was like, boom, I'm there.
But it makes sense. Like, not first of all, drive-in is very nostalgic, and it's still, if anybody who doesn't go, who hasn't been should. But we actually went in October and saw it actually ended up being one of my favorite movies, but it was Love and Monsters, and then it was Scream after that.
Yeah.
And that was a cool one. That was a cool
Love
one.
and Monsters was one of the most underrated, underseen films of the year last year.
Now you and I can agree on that one.
It's about damn time.
Yeah.
I will say this about Regal, and then I'll leave it alone.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I am happy to support the cinema. I want theaters to thrive. I love that experience. To me, I'm out in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. There's no better Friday night than a date night at Riverfront Tavern, and then going over to Providence Regal Cinemas and seeing a movie, and then walking out at night, and you got the nice night air. You're talking about the movie, whether you liked it. That whole experience is great. Yeah. But I might as well just let them spread my butt cheeks wide open for a box of Raisinets.
Yeah. Let me tell you what I don't like.
Okay, here we go. We're gonna. You know what?
This is it. I really don't like that they made a deal with Pepsi. It's not the same.
No,
it's not the same. Do
I
they realize how many options I have at AMC when I go up to their little machine and I can get a cherry Sprite? I didn't even know that existed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's a Shirley Temple, basically. So those have been around
Which
for a
is
while.
delicious. It's
It is.
delicious.
But I took my pizza business away from Papa John's for basically that same damn thing. I was like, Pepsi doesn't go good with anything.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Now listen, as a favor, this
Unless
is
they're
how
a sponsor of this show.
this is how good of a friend I am with the EIC over there. Is they bought Pepsi for a family event and no one drank them. So guess who drinks at least once every time I go over there? It is me.
I've been to the headquarters many times.
Yeah.
I've seen those Pepsis collecting dust in the fridge.
I think you're almost through though.
We've almost gotten through them.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right.
I did not help with
before
that.
we dive into the film festival talk, I do want to commend you guys for your efforts. I wish Brittany could be here tonight. I know she had some extenuating circumstances that prevented her from joining. I know she loves the Chattanooga Film Festival. If you read her work on SoBrosNetwork.com, the love, the passion that she has for this film festival just shines through. We shout out her for seeing 3 features, 3 shorts, and attending 3 events at the festival. All of that is up on SoBrosNetwork.com. You just hit the entertainment tab and it pops right up. I want to give her a shout out. I obviously want to shout out you guys for dedicating the time to watching these films, and we'll review them on this podcast. All in all, I counted 17 features, 8 shorts, and 3 events that we will have covered by the end of the show. And that was before Steven started remembering that he had seen like 9 more features. So really, you're looking at like 35 to 40 things that we'll have either written on the site from Brittany or we'll have talked about on this podcast. So a lot of work going into those few days. The Chattanooga Film Festival has always been good to Sobros Network, so we thank them for being so welcoming and inviting to us. Another fun year in the books. And before we get your lineups of what you watched, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to pay some bills here on the Vick's Flicks podcast. We're still live, Brandon.
He couldn't wait to leave.
we didn't take a break. We're still live on the broadcast.
I'm sorry, I had to turn on a light.
I had the wife bring her ring light out and
that's what it is.
The professional. I'm losing my daylight. I should have plugged my ring light in, but
listen, that's what I started to notice. I thought, I guess I'll turn on my lamp. We were going to commercial.
Yeah, but we're still live. We're still live on all the socials.
That's fine.
That's all right. That's all right. So if you haven't gathered by now, we are back here on the Vick's Flicks podcast talking about the 2021 Chattanooga Film Festival. We're going to start with you, Brandon. You got in, what is this, 9 features? Am I counting correctly? No, 10.
Yeah, 10 features. One of them was a documentary.
An Ideal Host, He's Dead and So Am I, Night Drive, Cliff, Mom, I Befriended Ghosts, My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To, Scenes from an Empty Church, Mr. Limbo, Black Medusa, and Broadcast Signal Intrusion. That's an awful lot for a guy that told me he might be able to see like 3 or 4 of these that weekend. So first of all, I'm going to put you on the spot and grill you in front of the entire Vick's Flicks podcast audience. What happened?
I ended up being able to watch, I think I ended up watching 3 one day.
Okay.
And then I feel like by the time I hit the weekend, I had already watched the 6 I wanted. And then there was a couple I couldn't watch until they actually started. So one was like a secret screening that was for Monday. And then there was a closing night one. So some of it plays into effect. Like there's you mentioned it, there's a documentary about this Canadian artist called Cliff. It was 48 minutes. I thought, what the hell? And that actually ended up being a pretty interesting one. And then I don't think I counted on trying to catch a secret screening, but I did. So I think that played into it. I just thought.
The concept of the secret screening was pretty cool. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
Well, I think they had 3. And so they kind of would give you, at first they wouldn't give you any hints or anything, but essentially you wouldn't know it until it happened. So it was a scheduled time for a certain day. And so, but once it started, they kind of revealed it to you, and then you still had a time window that you could see it, and
Sure.
and so through certain events and the way the weekend played out, I thought, okay, Monday, which was the last one, was the one I was going to see, which ended up being a movie called Black Medusa. But yeah, it's kind of neat because it's the unknown, and I think one of them. I don't want to get too far ahead. I think McCash saw, but I think one of them was like a retro film from the 70s.
Yep.
I think so. It wasn't just like a new one, but I did catch the one that actually was made. That is a recent one that I guess will be on the film festival circuit.
So hit us with the ratings then. What were your highest rated movies out of this slate that you saw?
So I had two of them. So nothing was beyond 3.5, but 3.5 out of 5 is not bad for Vick's Flicks. Trust me. It was actually, one was the opening night one. It's called Scenes from an Empty Church. And it's actually one of the very few that I think was offered that I definitely, one of the few that I saw that was actually like this dramedy. It took place in New York. It was about these two priests, and it actually was very effective in the way that it handled the way that dealt with COVID.
Oh, okay.
It was right in the thick of things where they had to shut down, and depending on who can come in and still have a place of worship. But it kind of, I mean, it is funny, and the performances are really solid. I think the way that the pandemic is handled within this kind of premise was actually quite effective, and it's quite an endearing movie on faith, of course, but also just kind of making sense of things. And I actually thought it did a really good job on a lot of its themes that it wanted to hit. And I think everybody has this kind of craving to do these movies that deal with kind of the pandemic, and there's been some out there, and it's been, I mean, honestly quite lousy, but this one was done really well. But also I think just the overall kind of idea of religion thrown in the mix, I thought was pretty interesting, and I actually rather enjoyed that one.
Very well. This is a festival that you and I have talked about has really started kind of leaning into the horror genre a bit
Oh
the
yeah.
last couple of years, and 2020, 2021, both all virtual festivals. So seeing that sort of transition for this film festival, did you get to watch any of the horror stuff, or did you mainly stay away from that knowing that like Brittany and Steven were going to get into some of that?
Yeah, no, I mean, this isn't in a bad way, but I don't think you can get away from it.
Mm.
The selections are very much, now listen, it's a variety. I mean, as far as the spectrum of what's considered a horror movie,
Yeah.
it's someone throw up. I'm sorry, I'm losing. I'm losing. No, but it's the spectrum of so much different kinds of horror movies, and that's why, as you pointed out earlier, I wish Brittany could be a part of this, because she can definitely kind of go into what I'm talking about. But no, I did see some weird stuff. I think I kind of went towards like some of it more supernatural thriller type than just straight up like gore.
Okay.
Which I think maybe McCash and Brittany may have seen. But I think overall, a lot of the movies that I saw dealt with like being that in between of not you're dead, but you haven't really moved on. There's a couple of movies where there's themes about that seemed. I kind of saw it pop up in at least a few of the ones I saw.
So what were your overall impressions of the festival this year?
I mean, overall, I thought it was pretty good. I think the great thing about the way that Sobros did this is I think we had, for the first time, we had 3 different people approach a film festival with that. The beauty of it is we don't usually see eye to eye on
Yeah.
these kinds of movies and this genre and stuff. So
Sure.
I think, I mean, it's also, that's the great thing about film festivals in general, is that you don't really know what you're getting into. And so as much as like there's maybe some that I didn't enjoy myself, I think that, McCash very well could have experienced it, could have experienced it completely differently. But of the 10 movies I saw, I do think that like I had a few that really stood out, and there's others that I think there's a lot of risks in them, but I wouldn't say that that I personally enjoyed that part of it. But
Yeah.
Listen, that's the beauty of film festivals. And Chattanooga Film Festival they have their niche, and they get it all there. And trust me when I tell you that there are a lot of people that dive right into these kinds of movies. And listen, there's a reason that Sobros and me personally keep coming back.
Yeah, I mean, this is the 4th consecutive Chattanooga Film Festival that we've covered on SobrosNetwork.com. We got to go there in person in 2018 and in 2019. But obviously the last 2 years being held virtually put a damper on those plans. So hopefully we'll be able to get back there, the whole team, all 4 of us, in 2022. Well, we're going to take a quick break. Brandon, don't get off the couch. We're just
okay.
we're still live on the broadcast.
Just stay seated.
Take a quick break and pay some bills with a commercial break here. And when we get back, we're going to talk about the 2 films that these 2 guys saw happen to overlap on the Chattanooga Film Festival. Fuck. Oh shit, we're still live. Now I'm the one messing up. Okay, great. Back here on the Vicks Flicks podcast, talking about the Chattanooga Film Festival. Stoney Keeley here, chatting with Stephen McCash and Brandon Vick. You guys were the only 2 of all 3 of you that covered the Chattanooga Film Festival. You 2 are the only ones that overlapped in a couple of the movies that you saw. So we'll start with an ideal host. Brandon, give us your thoughts on this one.
So I really dug the beginning of it. And it's essentially about this girl, and it opens up with her and her boyfriend literally going through a surprise engagement at the very beginning. Like, it's very what's the word? It's very planned out. So like they want this dinner party and everything to go exactly how they want it to. And but as the synopsis goes, an unexpected guest kind of sends everything into chaos. And what happens is, without giving too much away, what starts out is like this dinner party where, what could go wrong. And then of course everything goes wrong. And it is it's definitely a sci-fi movie, creature feature sort of mix.
Okay.
I think
I didn't see coming.
I didn't, and the way that it's kind of done involves, as I put it, a very dangerous, probably the most dangerous spin the bottle game that I've ever seen in a movie. So that kind of gives you a hint on how things, how one can be overtaken by a certain kind of thing. But the more that it went,
so hard not to give anything away.
Yeah, well, that's part of the fun. I know that's part of the fun. But I will say, the longer it went, the more I thought it kind of became a little more basic. I didn't really. Once it kind of revealed its, once it kind of showed all of its cards on what kind of movie this really is. It didn't really. It wasn't groundbreaking in any way. The acting was okay. But I don't know. I felt like it was such a great premise and the way that it started, but it couldn't keep up that same kind of energy. So I kind of feel like a lot of that potential was wasted within its runtime and the way that it kind of all played out.
Stephen, what did you make of An Ideal Host?
It was the first movie I watched. I
Me
went
too.
through leading up to the festival. I would go through and read the synopsis. If there was a trailer, I watched the trailer. And nowhere in this did I pick up that this movie was going to take a turn like it took.
So what drew you to this film then? What did you see in the trailer? I mean, if
I'm basically, the one out of the three of us who saw films that is into chick flicks, and I got chick flick vibes off of this. I almost said something wrong, but
no,
I thoroughly enjoy that type of movie. They look like a nice little sweet, romantic comedy, possibly with the proposal and everything, and then it took a turn, and I was like, "What the hell? Is this the same damn movie?" And the last, I guess, like 20 minutes, Brandon, it became one of the goriest movies I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, it really leans into that body horror stuff. Yeah, I agree.
But still, with that said, it was one of my favorites of the weekend.
Very well. There you have it.
I don't know if that's saying a lot, but
I know Brandon has his 5-star rating system. What did you give it on the hashtag VixFlix scale?
If we're doing 5, I would do a 3.5 for this one.
3.5, Brandon?
Yeah.
I gave it a 2.
That's what I was about to say.
I said, let me tell you, and Makash, I'm sure that you thought the same thing. The way that it does its title, title of it, as she's changing.
Yes, that was brilliant.
The room,
was brilliant. Yeah.
And so I felt like, it's got a different kind of vibe, but it just the more that it unfolds, and honestly, the more that you kind of are revealed on what this really is, the kind of more like it kind of lost I kind of lost interest in it. But
I didn't dig deep to see who wrote it or who directed it or what they've done in the past. But I like what you're pointing out with the title sequence that they come back to at the end was something I'd never seen before. And I thought that was one of the highlights of the film as well, as subtle as it was.
If I'm not mistaken, I think this was the director's first feature, and it's Robert Woods.
Right.
And I believe I'm getting that right. And that I think a lot of his stuff has been within visual effects and everything. But I think this was directorial debut. But you can see the potential, but it's not, for me, it wasn't all there laid out for me.
I think maybe if this film had been behind a bigger studio and had, maybe another writer, assisting with it, I think this could have been a promising film.
I agree. The premise was there, and it does hold your attention. But like I said, for me, it's kind of like the more you knew about it, it seemed like there was a certain point where we kind of started to fall into cliche territory, and we didn't really know how to make it kind of come full circle and still kind of hold that same interest that the beginning did.
I will say this. I'm looking at the branding now, like the poster and some of the screenshots from Rotten Tomatoes, and I can definitely see how you just look at this on the surface level and think, oh yeah, chick flick. It makes all the sense in the world. Also, it has 5 critic reviews, 4 fresh, 1 rotten. So yeah, pretty interesting there. But I'll tell you this, the conversation has made
people on Rotten Tomatoes just like me.
This conversation has made me want to see this movie. So I guess love it or hate it, it's serving its purpose. I don't mean to put you guys on the spot, but do either of you know if this is something that you can watch outside of the Chattanooga Film Festival, or if it's on any sort of streaming service or anything like that right now?
Not off the top.
Yeah, I think it's still going through the film festival circuit.
Yeah, it looks like it was made in 2020.
If I want to throw a guess, it could be on Shudder by the end of the year.
Okay. Well, why do I feel like that's an insult?
It's not an insult. But I will tell you, and Chattanooga Film Festival will not disagree, there are quite a few features I've seen through the years that pop up on Shudder.
Oh, there you go.
So I feel like that's very possible.
So the other movie that you two had in common was a film called Night Drive. Brandon, you want to lead off talking about this one?
Yeah, this was one I was really it seemed quite interesting, kind of what Makash was saying about with the where you're just kind of reading about it. I tried not to watch too many trailers because I kind of wanted to keep the element of surprise, but it's kind of like this Uber driver who picks up this girl and she's got something and she's running from someone. And I'm going to keep it spoiler free, but it's very significant into the story of what's in this box and what it can do. Okay. My main problem with this movie is the ending almost ruins my entire experience.
Really?
Whoa.
Yes.
Really?
I didn't
enjoy the ending.
By the time that it is that at what is everything that's kind of building up to, and when the driver himself finds out what this is and what it can do, it all just seems so rushed. And the final scene, I just was not into. I thought there could have been so many different ways to play that the way that it all just kind of was put together, it ruined it for me. I like the intrigue part, and even kind of the thought behind what this story ultimately is about. But I feel like the ball was really dropped on the last 10, 15 minutes.
So, Stephen, you said that you liked the ending. What did you like about it? What made it so enjoyable for you?
The exact things that Brandon hated about it. I like that it seemed like it was a fight to the finish at the end, and they're trying to wrap things up quickly. Okay. I usually hate that in movies, but this one, it worked for me. And this is another one that, I didn't see it taking the sci-fi turn that it ended up taking midway through the movie. It's got some a dark Back to the Future vibes to it, basically, not to give anything away.
Ooh, interesting.
And I will say this probably had one of my favorite performances of everything I saw in the features. The lead girl, Sophie Dalla, I think is how you pronounce her name. I really enjoyed her in her role.
Now, I think I will say the acting was pretty good. I didn't. There's all this buildup and this mystery, and then when we finally get to what I would consider the meat of the story, it was I don't know. It wasn't as striking as I thought it should be.
Gotcha. I was a little confused at first. I'm like, why the hell is there an Uber driver driving a Porsche? Luckily,
it is explained. It is explained.
Which, 45 minutes into the movie, I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense.
There you have it. So that is Brandon and Stephen's thoughts on An Ideal Host and Night Drive. We're going to take our last commercial break of the show. And when we get back, we're going to wrap up talking about Stephen's slate of movies that he watched as a part of the Chattanooga Film Festival here on the Vick's Flicks podcast.
Stoney, before you start back, before we get to live.
We're still live.
Yeah, I know. I know. Okay. But before we get to the end, I have one shout out because I think I would just want to have a shout out to my favorite movie that I saw, because I said the church one, but that wasn't my favorite.
Okay. Well, that's fine. I was going to do a best of the fest.
Okay. All right.
At the end.
Okay.
There we go.
I guess you've done this before. That's fine.
All right. We're back on the Vick's Flicks podcast. Stephen, we got your thoughts on An Ideal Host and Night Drive, but you were a pretty busy man over the course of the festival as well. Give us some more of the highlights from your experience with the Chattanooga Film Festival.
I spent a lot of time watching the shorts because I knew Brandon's wasn't going to, so somebody had to pull that weight.
Yeah,
sure. So I ended up watching 3, 6. I ended up watching 10 when it was all said and done.
10 shorts or 10 total?
Shorts. 10
Damn.
Total shorts.
Okay.
I mean, it's easy to do when they're 12, 15 minutes long.
Fair enough.
Some favorites was one called Flick, which is about a guy who's, if I remember correctly, he was sitting in front of a TV playing a video game or whatever, and he picks his nose. And he can't get the booger off. And nothing, and weeks on end, whatever, he can't get it off, and then finally
it shows the booger, huh?
It shows the booger. And he like ends up cutting it off, cutting his either the finger or his hand off. I forget which. When it's all said and done, and I mean it's a short, so you can go watch it. It's pretty gross. And then at the end, as he's walking away, as it goes off, he takes the other finger and picks a booger.
Oh God, this sounds like something I would write if you've ever.
I was going to say this. Did Sobros produce this? I mean,
yeah. And then there was Stuck, which I talked about earlier before we started recording, is about a pedophile who's finds his way into a gymnastics gym and ends up being flipped on and jumped on by gymnasts, and he's crushed to death. It was a gross one. And then there was one called Korean Ghost Town Story that had Margaret Chow in it. That's really weird and out there that I highly recommend. But yeah, shorts, those are some of my favorite shorts. And then in features wise, I also watched Coming Home in the Dark, which is one of the surprise movies that got a lot of talk about. It's an Australian film. It's supposedly making the circuits at different festivals and such that people were raving about online. And Brittany really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It's just, it didn't deliver to me from the way everybody was building it up. I felt a little let down.
So I didn't realize that was one that you had watched as well, but that is one that Brittany has in her features piece on SobrosNetwork.com.
And then two other main ones I want to shout out is Blood Conscience, which is a kind of a take on the Get Out movie, the Jordan Peele type movies. That I would probably say it was my favorite of the festival, hands down, easily.
There you go.
And
so
then
we're talking shorts, features, everything.
Yeah, and then the last one was Danny and the Vampire, which was really, really campy about a former vampire hunter, basically, who befriends a vampire that's being hunted.
So you say campy, but you kind of say it in a glowing manner. It's like the good campy.
It was a lot of fun.
Okay.
It was a lot of fun. It gives that cheesy 80s campy vibe. That you would get in horror films from the 80s.
Can I just ask the Blood Conscious one? Why was it your favorite, or what was like kind of like the story without giving too much away? I know it's like in the Get Out.
It's in the Get Out vibe. So there's a boyfriend girlfriend couple who probably like early mid-20s or so. Yeah, I'd say mid-20s, driving out to their family lake home that's in the lake community, and they've got the girl's older brother who's in college. And the three of them are going back to visit. It's a family outing and such. And then they get there and they find that their parents are nowhere to be found. And then you later find out they're dead. And then there's nobody in the community that is alive as well, except for a couple people who show themselves throughout the movie. And it's really on the thriller side of things.
Gotcha.
As they're fighting to find a way out, and then it ends where they find a community where they think they're safe, and I'm not going to say if they are or aren't.
It sounds like maybe I'm just shitty at selecting the movies I watch.
I mean,
Blood Conscious and even that Coming Home in the Dark, I kind of felt like, and then go ahead.
I really think you would have liked Blood Conscience. Really
and I'm because of in what Stoney pointed to earlier about with Brittany and the write-ups that she has on the site. But now I want to watch Dimland just because of the way she explains it. Like I feel like I'm too interested. I want to see it for myself, even if I love it or hate it. I'm at a point where I wish I probably should have just jumped in and watched it, but.
Yeah, that one I don't even think I even looked at, to be honest, now that I'm looking.
I remember seeing it, but then, and I remember Brittany saying something about it, but it already passed, and we're all trying to watch different stuff, but
was that one where you had to watch it at a particular time?
It might have been, or maybe I was just trying to fit in the last few, but I know like between the three of us, we were kind of all over the place, which I mean, that's, which is a good thing, but yeah, I kind of wish I would have caught a couple more. Trust me, I would have switched out a few that I saw with some of them. So.
I will say, I don't want to shit on any movie really, but this movie was made like 40 years ago, so I think it's fair I could shit on it. Five Desperate Women, which
was a secret screening, right?
Which was a secret screening
yeah.
that was after one of the talks that they had about like TV made for movie horror films or whatever. But this was like five women who go to this like cabin on a lakefront, and it was just
Can I just say that at some point I had logged in to watch something else, and I saw the poster for that movie and thought, nah, I'm fine. That's okay.
I took one for the team. Let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna let me say, Stoney. Sorry, I don't want to mess up the.
It was the ABC movie of the week.
Yeah. The flow we got going, but I'm going to tell you, I saw a movie called Mom, I Befriended Ghosts.
Yeah.
Now, this is the worst movie that I saw at the festival. And I will tell you, so this is like
on my list.
It took place in Siberia, but really it kind of dealt more. It wasn't like pandemic, but it did deal with like there's these like people are dying and they're in quarantine because their water there's some mysterious disease which comes from their water, and so the people are being poisoned by it. But like that kind of sets like the tone of it. But then it's this girl that goes out, and because this other girl had been taken, and so they end up where she rescues her. It was so boring. Now maybe there was some kind of wonderful, significant meaning. I don't know where it was. I didn't see it. I didn't catch it. And the movie's only like an hour and 15 minutes, but I'm like, it was so boring. And even by the end.
Like Hereditary.
Okay, I like that movie. I will not agree to that.
Oh, shit. You guys are like automatic. If Steven likes something, Brandon doesn't, and vice
versa. Just about.
It's an amazing phenomenon to keep track of on the Drinking With podcast.
But I just did not, I guess maybe I just didn't get it. It was so slow, and then like it's something that may have happened where she ends up getting poisoned. One of the girls gets poisoned, and she just, and the other one leaves to go back home, and the one she thought was dead ends up coming back alive, and that was it. And I'm like, I would say spoiler alert, but I mean I wouldn't even see it, but I don't even like. I was just like, after it ended, I thought, "Whew, that was a tough one to get through."
I had a movie like that as well. It was events transpiring before, during, and after a high school basketball game.
Okay, so this was also. I really think this was a part of the Atlanta Film Festival, and I didn't watch it, but I read the synopsis and I thought. This just sounds like a normal day in high school.
That's basically what it was. And I get it's an hour and 15 minutes long. I get like 45 minutes into it, and I'm like, where the fuck is this going? And then something happened where I had to like leave the house for whatever reason, and I just never finished it.
So you don't
won the game.
You don't know how it ended.
Yeah, that's the ultimate kiss of death.
Yeah,
that's you can't come back from
that. Listen, if I can sit through K-19 Widowmaker, you can sit through an hour and 15-minute basketball movie.
Look, I sat through Hereditary twice, and it's not happening.
Why'd you go see it twice?
Well, I saw it in theaters because it's a horror film. I go to every horror film possible. I fucking hated it so much. And everybody ranted and raved about how great it was. Brittany, Jesse, everybody. So finally, I convinced the wife to watch it. I was like, look, I know you don't like horror films. This movie sucks. I need somebody to validate my opinion. And she watched it. She's like, that was boring. She wasn't scared at all, except for the light post scene. That was it.
Mm.
Yeah,
I'm not even going to ask you about Midsummer. I don't have the heart.
Yeah, Florence Pugh's in it, and she's great.
She is great.
That's about it.
Florence Pugh can do no wrong.
She is great.
No,
we don't need to be. We're like three creepy dudes right now.
We'll have Zach Braff hunting us down.
So, Steven, are you saying that Events Transpiring was the worst of the fest for you?
He doesn't know. He didn't finish it.
5 Desperate Women, because I finished it.
5 Desperate Women. Okay.
It's
Yeah,
1A, 1B.
I didn't get a worst of the fest from Brittany, but I did reach out to her literally as we're live on Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube. Brittany coming in clutch hits me with her best of the fest, which is Poor Glenna for the short, Dimland, and Coming Home in the Dark. So that was her best of the fest. Steven, I know you mentioned Blood Conscious, really liking that one. Are there any other films that you would put in the conversation for your best of the fest?
Yeah, I really like Night Drive. I don't care what Brandon says.
Okay.
I really like that. And then I don't call this a movie, but there was a thing called One Man Show. I've got it right here. It was this guy that's in Knoxville, I think is where he's at. It's a one-man show, The Music and Madness of Nick Lutsko.
Okay.
And it's just like 45 minutes, an hour of like these skits and songs he's done over the years. And I cried from laughing during the whole damn thing.
Wonderful.
I highly recommend, you can go to YouTube and probably find all of this stuff, or even this 1 hour show. But it was hysterical.
Brandon, what about you? What's your best of the fest?
I just want to say this is the gift of having collaborators, because there's some shit I just wouldn't watch, and it's nothing against what is being provided. It's just that listen, I've been lucky enough to be at a few film festivals, and that's just not my thing. But
this guy is like a mashup of Bo Burnham and Zach Galifianakis.
Oh, well, I was going to say, I also want to look into it. And now that you said that, I dig both of those. If anyone hasn't watched Bo Burnham Inside on Netflix, you've got to watch it.
Oh, you guys agree on something.
Yeah, it's so good.
And it's awesome. You know what? My favorite, and I kind of knew it as soon as within about 30 minutes of it, but it was called My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To.
Okay.
And it's at the root of it, it's a vampire story, but it's also it kind of plays into a family drama, but the way it's done, it's very much for anyone who has seen either the original Let the Right One In or the American version that has Richard Jenkins and Chloe Moretz of Let Me In. It's Patrick Fugit from Almost Famous.
Okay.
He plays a brother, he plays a guy who has a brother that is clearly, can't go out, doesn't meet friends, and then his sister, and that's all they really have together. And the sister really plays into, this can't work without all three of us. And Patrick Fugit is kind of the guy, which if anyone has seen Let Me In or Let the Right One In, is the guy that kind of has to go get the blood source for his brother. And and so he's kind of tired of that life and doing that. And the way that it's played out, the way that it's told is really well done. And I was very interested. It's dark and bloody, but also the family dynamic and the way it was presented, I thought was really well done. And so I would have to give that my favorite of Chattanooga Film Fest. I was really pleasantly surprised, but it's also I don't know. I was a big fan of the Right One In, Let Me In, and it really, there was a lot of things that kind of reminded me about those films. And so anyway, I was really impressed by it.
Well, there you have it, gentlemen. We have waxed poetic a good 50 minutes about the Chattanooga Film Festival. Steven, I'll ask you before we get out of here, any parting thoughts on the 2021 Chattanooga Film Festival?
This was a fun first foray into the film festival. I will say that I'm glad we watched these at home.
Yeah,
I'm very forward to being able to go hopefully next year in person. But I think this was there's no way in hell I could have watched 10 features and 10 shorts in person. I've been brought a sleeping bag and called it a day.
Brandon, what about you?
Yeah, well, and I think that's kind of what it's kind of what stinks about it is that I have been there. We've been fortunate enough to go down there in person. the whole experience of the Chattanooga Film Festival really kind of lives in that kind of in-person interaction.
Sure.
And so I think that while it's always fun, it's always surprising. Again, the genres that they mix in is incredible. But I do think that for my fellow collaborators here, McCash and Brittany, that I think that they'll get a really real kick out of being there live. It's just something about the energy when you're there and you're in it and you're with an audience. And so I'm hoping that that they, and as a brand of Sobros, can enjoy it next year.
Yeah, that's one thing we've talked about this, the three of us and Brittany, just getting there in person. I think just missing that sort of the feeling of camaraderie, like, yeah, we're there to technically do a job and cover the festival and write articles and do the podcast and that sort of thing. But there is a sort of camaraderie that comes with just kind of hitting the road. I mean, it's not like a huge road trip. We're in Nashville. We're an hour and a half away. But there is an element of camaraderie to that, like getting there in person and kind of scheduling all this stuff. And then, meeting up for drinks at the end of the day and just discussing what everybody saw, what the day was like, that sort of thing. That I do typically enjoy about this festival that I've missed and look forward to hopefully getting back in 2022.
Well, I was going to say, and I mean, just shout out to the city of Chattanooga. I mean, it's an easy drive for us, but the city itself is quite a lively little town, and so to have a festival like this, I think is pretty cool. And I just want to say that as crazy as we've made Chattanooga Film Festival be with the variety that they've shown, I did see the Ruth Bader Ginsburg documentary there.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they do. There is no limit to what they will show, which is always part of the fun.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. All right, Stephen, before we get out of here, let everybody know where they can find you on social media.
On the Twitter, MC_Cash75. At TikTok, it's just Stephen McCash if you want to see cute videos of my dog Paisley.
That's it is. And Brandon, how about you?
At Sir Brandon V on Twitter. #VixFlix, most up-to-date movie reviews. And, of course, at VixFlixPod.
And I am at Stoney Keeley. Collectively, we are at Sobros Network on all major social media platforms. You can check out all of our latest work at SobrosNetwork.com. All of our latest merch up at SobrosShop.com. You can support the team through Patreon and gain exclusive access to over 300 items of premium content created solely for our Patreon subscribers. Multiple support tiers are available so you can help out the team however you see fit. That's patreon.com/SobrosNetwork. Don't forget to subscribe to the VixFlix podcast on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify or wherever you take in your shows. We are out there. Give us a rate and review whenever you have a moment. That's how we get better, and we always want to be better for you guys. For Stephen McCash and Brandon Vick, I am Big Natural Stoney Keeley. And until next time, you stay classy, moviegoers.